Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today we're going to be playing around with painted faces using some collage tissue. So the collage tissue I'm using here is one from Scrap FX and it's called Contoured Ladies. You can see it's a really simple image to play with, which I really liked. So I'm using some tinted gel medium to glue this down on my page, and I've chosen that deliberately so it gets rid of the whiteness of my tissue paper and it sort of blends it in more to the page. Because I am using a gel medium on my page to glue it down, I've actually chosen to gel medium over the entire page because you can see how it's changed the colour just slightly, so I didn't want patches of one colour and another colour, so by just putting a really thin coat over everything, it helped tie it all together. So for those of you who've followed my channel for a while, you know that when I paint faces, I really like using rainbow colours. I do that personally because I find it easier for me to see where I need to put my highlights, my lowlights and my mid-tones. So I use my yellow as my lightest tone, my highlight. I use the pink as my mid-tones and I use the blue as a shadow. And I was playing around with this image doing this because it's 3/4 facing image. So I generally, when I'm painting faces, I'm painting them straight on. So I really sort of had to think about where I was putting my shadows, where was going to be the darkest bit on this page, where was going to be the lightest bit, where was the light going to hit. And obviously you can sort of see from where I've put the yellow on this page that I was having this sort of the light source coming from the top left. So as I was sort of painting it in, you can see me putting in the detail of the eyes, which helps make it look a little bit more realistic, even though, you know, we've all got rainbow colours. But, you know, that's how it is. I put out a little bit of fuchsia, so a darker red colour to tint in the lips, and then put a little bit of blush on as well. So this is all about putting on really thin layers. I don't tend to put it on too thickly, so I can still see the tissue paper behind, which I find really important. It helps me kind of blend everything in together, but it also gives me those outlines and those shapes that I can draw over at the end. So even though this looks like it's going on and it's quite thick and opaque, I can still see those lines underneath it, which I really like. Because I had that sort of expanse of white at the side, I had to decide what I was doing with the rest of the hair. So I decided that I would sort of paint in a few strips of the darker lapis colour and then fill it in with some lighter colours to get sort of some layers and shading happening. But I had to think a little bit about what colour I actually wanted to do that with. So I actually went in with a darker blue. This is the night. Over the top, to sort of get that raven black hair look that you sort of have those streaks of blue through that you sort of see in magazines and so on. I found it a little bit dark though, so I wanted to do something to sort of get some lightness back in there again, because it was very dark and her face was kind of getting hidden a little bit. So with what was left on my paintbrush, I was also using some of that dark just to sort of shade in with a really dry brush. So most of the time when I'm working, my brushes are quite dry, unless I'm looking for a really watery effect. Once I've finished doing that, I put in the blacks of the eyes and then putting a little bit of white in to help pop them out, and then drying off my image so I can do a little bit more playing over the top. Sharpening my Stabilo oil pencil is always handy to do. So I'm drawing in all those contour lines now that were originally on it, and I'm using those guides that were there previously, so I can still see them hiding underneath the paint, that it's easy enough to draw over, but I really like how it framed up the page again. Now as I'm going, I'm sort of adding in a little bit of shading and playing around. The good thing about the Stabilo oil pencil is the fact that it is water soluble, so where I made a little bit of a boo-boo, I'm able to wipe it away with a wet wipe and then fix it up as needs be. I found that I'd lost a little bit of that yellow, so I decided to go back in and put a little bit more. And then with my finger, I've just actually smudged some over the hair, which I really liked how that ended up looking, because it gave those beautiful golden highlights from where the sun would be shining or the light source would be shining. So it was sort of really fortuitous that I had some yellow left, that I was able to do that. And you see I got quite carried away with it because I really liked how it ended up looking. And obviously because I've got the yellow going over the blue, it sort of gives an almost greenish tinge to the yellow. When I did that, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do next, but I found this stencil that I bought, which is a Stencil Girl stencil, so it's this really drippy rainbow. So I decided that I would add a rainbow onto my page, sort of to add in. And because it doesn't actually have all the bits of a rainbow on it, I thought I would sort of blend my colours together using my sponge to get the different colours going through. Now I probably should have thought about adding a rainbow one first rather than putting it on as an afterthought, but you know, these things happen. And luckily enough, it's a fairly simple shape that I could sort of work out where I needed to stop when I was stenciling to make sure that I didn't go over my image. The fact that I'm also sort of painting my image using acrylic paint means that if I did accidentally get paint where I wasn't supposed to, I could very easily go back and wipe it off if I needed to. Because I had that big gap of brown in the middle, I decided that I would go back in and just put a little bit more yellow in there to blend it together, because that got a little bit lost. Again, using my sponge, it's a bit messy, but that's all good because it is sort of a drippy rainbow thing happening there. I decided that I also would use the quote at the bottom, because I quite liked it. And this is actually the very first page of my journal. So it's not the first page I did in this journal. I'd done a fair few beforehand, but I sort of really liked that it had this quote on it to go through my book. And at this stage I'd sort of kind of decided that this book was going to be all about faces or figures, because I think all but one of my pages in here has a face or a figure on it. So I quite liked that it was sort of talking about surviving the storm, that these, you know, women or people in this journal have done that. I wanted to continue that rainbow feel to it, so I broke out my paint pens. I did everything in white first, just to give a really good base to my stenciling, and so these colours would really pop over the top. So if I tried to just draw these through, I probably wouldn't have got such a crisp look in the end. So I wanted to make sure that I had that white underneath. Then I'm going in and just doing a bit of a drop shadow on my letters so that they stand out from the background. So while it doesn't really matter on the craft bits when it's going over the painted image, it just really helps, particularly with the darker colours there, that you can see those letters suddenly pop out from the background. So it's a really simple way to make sure that your letters are really easy to read. So that is my first page of my journal. I was really happy with how it ended up. Really, really simple. Using those tissue papers to help me draw my face, to help me practice my shading, means I don't have to spend time drawing it out. It's already there for me. My final little end bit like with the white on the rainbows, I'm just going in with a black pen to help push out those white letters at the bottom. And you can sort of see what a difference it makes. Even though you think it won't make a difference, it just really helps pop those letters out from the background. Bonus is make sure everything's dry before you close the page. So here's a close-up of the finished page. You can see how those letters turned out. You can see the shading, how that yellow stands out against her hair, the drippy rainbow from the stencil. It all sort of ties together in the end. So I hope you have a go at this, using some different colours to shade your faces, using the collage tissues, and having fun with lots of colours in your journal. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, bye for now.